We're now in the IntelliJ project for my ImageStreamGang case study. And I'm going to show you a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just run the test program. And you can see here, this is in a file called ImageStreamGangTest. And we've got a whole bunch of different strategies that we're going to be able to run. So we're going to have a sequential streams version, a parallel streams version. Those are the ones we really care about right now. But just for good measure, we have some completable future versions, some versions that use reactive streams realized through RxJava. We have some other versions that use reactive streams using something called Project Reactor. We will not talk about those right now. They're just there to do interesting things. We have an array of filters that we want to apply. We have something called the results map. That's actually important to remember. The results map is a map of the names of the different strategies. So like parallel streams, sequential streams, completable future 1, completable future 2, with a list of the time that they took to run. And we'll see why we need to have that later. Here's the program. We parse the arguments, we run all the tests, and run tests will first warm up the thread pool just because we want to get everything up and running. We want the thread pool to be launched and ready to go and warm. And then we go through every one of those tests that we listed up here in this enumerated type, the test to run enumerated type. And for each of those tests, we go through this loop. We delete anything left over from the previous run, so we don't have to worry about caching, because we want everything to download for the test. We then make a factory method call, which is the factory method pattern, to make an ImageStreamGang, passing in the filters and the list of URLs and so on, and the name of the test. And we'll take a look at that in a second. Once we do that, we run the garbage collector, so everybody starts off on an even footing. And then we run that particular test, which will then do its computation. And then we take the results and we stick them in the results map, so we know what occurred during the run. So let's go take a look at make ImageStreamGang. This is just a good old factory method. Factory methods are often where the ugliness goes, the things that you don't want to require the rest of your program to be aware of, like switch statements and handling, initialization, variations, and so on. So here we switch on the test to run enumerated type. And if it's a sequential stream, we make a new input stream sequential. If it's a parallel stream, we make a new images stream parallel, et cetera, et cetera. So all we're doing is just making the appropriate strategy here. And then we've got a couple of other interesting methods. One's called get timing results. This will figure in when we talk about spring in a minute, and it just returns the results map. And then we have another very clever method called print timing results, which takes the map and it goes through and it prints the results out in a sensible way. And I won't go through all the details of this, but it's a super clever way of being able to sort the output in a manner that makes sense for what we want to see when we run the test. Okay, so given that, let's go ahead and run the test. So you can see it's warming up the fork join pool, it's running all the different strategies we looked at, and then when it's all done, it prints the strategies out in order from fastest to slowest. And you can see a couple of interesting things here. This shows off more stuff than we really need to cover right now, because I'm not really going to cover the completable future stuff or the RxJava stuff or the Project Reactor stuff. But you will note that the reactive streams implementations, especially Project Reactor, is really fast. So keep that in the back of your mind, because we're going to cover that material later in the course. And so it's kind of a teaser for future discussions. You'll ask, why is it so much faster than what's going on with parallel streams? And we'll talk about that when the time is right. You can see that parallel streams does quite respectably, though, at least for large input. For smaller input, these are two different chunks. These are all big input files, and these are all smaller input files, which is why the times are lower. You can see here that parallel streams are much slower than Reactor implementations were for small files, but they're about the same when the files are big. The key thing to note here is that everything is faster than the sequential version, right? Which is just slow.